There was a certain rich man, which was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died, and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died, and was buried. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivedst thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And beside all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. Then he said, I pray thee, therefore, Father, that thou wouldst send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. Abraham saith unto him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, Nay, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto him, If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. That was Luke chapter 16, verses 19 to the end of the chapter. So the main point of this narrative here is that the beggar was a believer, and the rich man was not. And as is plainly described here, when the beggar died, he found himself in heaven. And before he died, he was looking towards heaven. And even though outwardly the beggar was having a most unpleasant life, a most unpleasant time as he lived in this world, within him he had joy, though no one, your average person, was not aware of that. Other Christians would have been well aware of it. Other Christians that knew him well would have known it, that even though this beggar outwardly was miserable, or appeared miserable, he knew the secret of the Lord. And this is something that we must learn. If we're to find ourselves in heaven, we must know, we must understand this situation, the situation of the man who appears miserable and utterly wretched, externally. Internally, if he is a Christian, if he knows the Lord, a miracle of grace has been brought about, has been wrought in his soul. And he has been given the gift of God, which is an invisible power, which is an invisible joy, an invisible knowledge, which the world cannot enter into, cannot understand, or even begin to understand. They can hear the word externally as just the word or a word externally, having no true effect, or at least a very limited effect, but not the desired effect. The desired effect is the spiritual, the miraculous, the transforming, the spiritually transforming. So that is the most important point to understand, and the most important message to understand from this story, this narrative. So the rich man, who, as it says here, fared sumptuously every day in this world, had his heaven in this world, but truly his hell in the next. And laterally here at the end, he appears to have some sort of concern for his brethren who had not yet died. But I would question that. And I would say, no, there is no love in hell. There is no concern for others in hell. That's all gone. There is no common grace. We have something called common grace in this world, which restrains us all from the worst of what we are capable of, because we are all capable by nature of the most terrible things. You may remember somebody from history, bring anyone up from history, the most wicked person you can think of. Like most would say someone like Adolf Hitler or Stalin or Pol Pot or somebody like that, or Chairman Mao, these kind of people. And others that we've never even heard of are there throughout history too. But think of the most evil man you can imagine and understand that he is no worse than you, but for common grace, but for the grace of God, there go I. But for God's grace, this world, God's restraining grace, for all men are fallen in sin. And but for God's restraining grace, this world would be a very hell. Would it not? So, what is the man in hell? What is the soul in hell? What does he have with regard to these things? So when the rich man in hell, the man that had been rich but is now utterly poor, the worst, who's now under the very worst kind of poverty, to put it mildly, what does he have? And what kind of concern did he have for his 5 brethren that he mentioned? This is my understanding of it, that the more companions, you hear these stupid things, idiotic things being said by people who are trying to be so bold against God, trying to be so bold when they say things like, all my friends will be in hell, I look forward to it, I'll have a great time. Utterly foolish. The words of the bold fool, whose boldness will collapse like a house of cards, blow away as the fine dust in the breeze. When the time comes for him to leave this world, to depart the body, when the dust must return to the earth as it was, and the soul must return to God who gave it, and we must be judged according to the deeds done in the body. When the appointed time of our leaving this world comes, For it is an appointed time. God knows, and we know nothing. So that what the rich man was actually concerned about was the knowledge that the more company he has of people in hell, of sinners condemned with him, the more company, the more people that are present there with him, the more miserable will his experience be.